KCAL 9 News at 4.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Wynn.
And I'm Sylvia Lopez. A huge victory today for President Obama and his health care overhaul. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a historic ruling saying almost everything in the law is constitutional. We have live team coverage this afternoon. KCAL 9's Randy Page shows us what it means for California. We begin with KCAL 9's Danielle Nottingham live in Washington, D.C.
The Supreme Court's ruling can be seen as a campaign victory for President Obama, but Republicans are also using the High Court's decision to rally voters this fall. Supporters of President Obama's health care reform law celebrated outside the Supreme Court. In a 5-4 vote, the justices ruled nearly all of the Affordable Care Act is constitutional.
The highest court in the land has now spoken. We will continue to implement this law, and we'll work together to improve on it where we can.
Citing Congress's power to tax, conservative Chief Justice John Roberts joined the court's 4 liberal justices in upholding the individual mandate, the part of the law that requires every American to buy health insurance.
The court, validated a law that was clearly constitutional, so I'm proud to be an American today.
The justices did limit the law's expansion of insurance for the poor, ruling that the federal government cannot withhold a state's Medicaid funding if it does not participate.
Hell with tyranny!
Republicans are already using the ruling to fire up supporters.
What the court did not do on its last day in session, I will do on my first day if elected President of the United States. And that is, I will act to repeal Obamacare.
By 2014, the law is supposed to bring affordable coverage to 50 million uninsured Americans.
It's not going to decrease cost, it's going to decrease access, and it's really not going to enhance quality.
House Republicans are promising a repeal vote when they return from a July 4th break. As the law stands, most Americans will be required to buy health insurance or pay a penalty starting in 2014. The pressure is also on states to set up health insurance markets, or the federal government steps in to run them. Live at the Supreme Court, Danielle Nottingham, now back to you.
Danielle, what is next here? And we're also wondering how this is going to figure into the presidential elections coming up.
Well, coming up in the beginning of July, right after July 4th break, House Republicans announced today that they will hold a vote to repeal this health care reform law. Of course, they are against this. They've been against it from the very beginning, and they are working from now into the future to try to repeal it. Now, on the other hand, looking at President Obama, this was definitely a victory for him. He's using this as a rallying cry for his re-election campaign to say, keep this going. This was one of his major accomplishments of his term in office, and he wants to keep that momentum going. On the other hand, the Republicans are using it to rally their base. Just today, Romney's campaign and the RNC said they raised about $2.5 million in campaign donations. So both sides are trying to use the Supreme Court's decision to say, come out and vote. If you want to repeal this law, vote for Republicans. And President Obama saying, if you want to continue down this path with me, vote for me this fall.
All right, Danielle, live from us in Washington. Thank you. Well, today's ruling will have huge implications here in California. KCAL 9's Randy Page continues our team coverage live from Santa Monica. Randy.
That's right. We spoke to strong voices on both sides of this issue. Everyone seems to agree this landmark decision could change the face of healthcare in California, some expressing relief, others profound disappointment. At the St. John's Well Child and Family Center in South Los Angeles today, a celebration.
We were going to have champagne for you all, but our doctor said no. It's too early.
President and CEO Jim Monges says the projected influx of federal dollars through the Affordable Care Act will allow him to triple the number of medical, dental, and mental health examination rooms serving South Los Angeles.
For the first time in American history, we will have the funding necessary to provide health care to everyone who needs it.
My heart is overwhelmed.
Lita Jenkins is thrilled. She says she and her husband, who suffers from diabetes, haven't been able to afford health care on their $375 a month income.
It's like I just took about 100 pounds off of each one of my shoulders because I know I'm going to be taken care of.
Across town in Beverly Hills, OBGYN Dr. Peter Weiss offers a different take on today's Supreme Court decision.
Obamacare from the very beginning was what I call fiscally dishonest and intellectually challenged. It's just a bad law. Having a sheet of paper saying that you have health care insurance doesn't address the cost of health care, and that's what we have to address.
Those on both sides of the landmark health legislation agree on one thing. It is poised to dramatically change the delivery of health care in California.
These are tremendous consumer protections.
At Consumer Watchdog, a nonprofit group that keeps an eye on health insurance companies, Jamie Court says under the new law, health insurance companies will not be able to deny you coverage. They cannot set your rate based on your medical condition, and there is a cap on how much out-of-pocket cost you will have to pay.
So if you get into the hospital, you're only going to pay $7,500 per person per year. That's it, roughly. No more. For your family, you'll pay a little bit more. But you won't be left with hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills if you're an insured patient.
But he says these consumer protections come at a price.
You have an obligation to have an insurance policy, and if your employer doesn't pay for it, you're going to have to pay for it.
And California is well ahead of many other states because it's well on its way toward establishing an insurance exchange, which will make it easier for people to determine which plan is best for them. That could be well on its way by sometime next year, well in advance of the 2014 date when these features are expected to take effect. That is, if this law can withstand its challenges. Live in Santa Monica, I'm Randy Page. Back to you.
Randy, thank you. Be sure to stay with KCAL 9 News for the latest on the Supreme Court's health care reform decision and how it impacts the race for the White House.
The summer's really kicking in for